Hello there, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name's Natalie.
And I'm Laura.
And today we're going to be showing you how to make registrations on the NCFE Cash portal. So we're going to be covering the two main methods of doing this, using the key-in method and also using a CSV file. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, just input these into the question box that you should be able to see on your screen, and we'll answer all of these at the end. So once you're logged into the portal, this is the screen that you'll be able to see. So from here, you just click on the registration tab, which is in the black ribbon at the top of the screen here. So you'll then be presented with a menu containing several different options. In today's webinar, we'll be focusing on the top option, registering learners using key-in or CSV file. The options that you can see relating to tribal or bulk files is, it refers to a facility we have that allows you to register learners on multiple qualifications using only one CSV file. We're going to be focusing on the top option today, but if anyone attending wants further information or training on using tribal or bulk files, then just let us know and we can definitely get something arranged. So I'm now going to click on the top option, and once that loads, which will take just a couple of seconds, this is the screen from which you'll be carrying out your registrations. So I'm going to be covering the key-in method first, and then after this, Laura will talk you through how to register your learners via CSV. So the first thing to do, and this is whether you're registering learners using the key-in method or via CSV, is always to enter the name of the qualification that you're going to be entering the learners onto. So to do this, you can either enter the QAN code, as I'm doing now, or alternatively, you could type in the title of the qualification. So you would just click on the option so it populates into the bar. The next option down is the delivery time. Now, the recommended delivery time for VCerts is 2 years. Some centres do it a little more intensively over 1 year. Some centres do it longer, over 3. So just make sure that what you're clicking on is reflective of the length of the delivery that your school has decided on. The next section is available sessions. Now, as you can see, this section defaults to show the current academic year. Now, you should always register your learners as near to the start of the delivery as possible. However, if you are doing the registrations a little later and we've since crossed over into the new session, please just make sure you change this so it shows the session that the delivery started in, and this is because the EQA visits are allocated by the session the learners are registered in. But we're going to assume I've done mine on time, so I'm going to select the current session. Also, I would like to point out you get 2 inclusive visits per qualification and academic session. So if you were to register all learners on the same session, that may result in you needing additional visits to complete the moderation process, and there are charges for these. Now, the next section down is add to existing batch. We're going to be visiting this section a little later on in the webinar, so I'm going to leave that box unticked for now because I'm going to be creating a new batch. And then we've got assessment window, and this section will appear if the qualification you're registering the learners onto has an external assessment on it. And so all you need to do here is enter the date your learner will be sitting their exam. If you're not sure which date the learners will be sitting the exam, just speak to your delivery staff to check this with them. And now it's time to add in your learner details. So I'll just add a name here. Just bear with me while I do this. If your learner does have a middle name and they want this to appear on the certificate, don't put the name in the middle name field because this registration information won't actually show up on the certificate. Instead, you would put the middle name on the end of the first name, like I have done there. So the next column along is date of birth column. So you just fill that in as normal. Okay, you'll notice as well some of the fields do have red stars next to them, so this means that they're mandatory fields basically. If you don't see a star, then you can leave that field blank. As you'll see here, you've got things like the Center Learner Reference field, so that relates to an internal number that you might have. If you don't use these, that's fine, just leave it blank. The ULN field or unique learner number, that field isn't mandatory, but this does need to be completed at some stage if you want to claim funding for the learner. If you do plan to, but you don't have the information when you're registering, you can add the ULN later, and you would do that via the Manage ULN screen. And we will be covering that section of the portal in a later webinar. But you can also find a step-by-step guide on this section as well as all the others by clicking the support tab at the top of the screen. So all you do is select support tab and then the portal user guide option, and that gives you a really clear step-by-step guide of how to use that function as well. Or alternatively, feel free to give us a call and we can talk you through. So once you've got all the information added for the learner, you would just click the add button. Okay, and then as you can see, you've got the learner's details appear down here, and then you've got these two icons to the right of the learner details. So as you can see, the first one is so that you can edit the learner details. So if you have entered the registration details and you realize you've made a mistake, you won't have to start again. You can just click here, and then this will open up a new window so that you can make the required changes. So you would just make the change, click Save Changes, and then as you can see, the changes are reflected down here. So then the other option is the Delete Learner button. If you click that, it will just delete that row of information out. So once you've added all of the learners you wish to register for the qualification, you just click Next at the bottom of the screen. So this next screen is Center Information. So this screen shows an overview of your contact information, and also it's where you'll put any reference number or purchase order number that you want against the registrations. If you don't have one, just leave the section blank, that's absolutely fine. Please make sure that your contact information is correct and that the address you select is the one where the exam is going to take place. As you can see, the address option is a drop-down menu. So if you have more than one address, you select the relevant one from that list. If you click that list and the address where the exam is going to take place isn't listed, please get in touch with us and we can add that address onto our system. So once you've reviewed that information and you're happy that everything's correct, all you do is click Finish. So just wait for that to load a moment. Now this final screen confirms that the learners have been registered and also gives you the batch number, which is here. I would recommend that you record this number when you get to this point, but if you do misplace it, don't worry, as you can always find out the batch number that the learners are registered to via the portal search screen. Now again, we will be running a webinar that covers how to do this, or as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, you can just use the portal user guide. I'm now going to talk you through adding learners to an existing batch. So you would, I'm just going to click the Register More Learners key here to take us back to that page. So once that loads up, so you would just do exactly the same thing that you did last time. Okay, and then, okay, so now you've got that there, pop that in, that as it is, and then you'd select the Add to Existing Batch button. So you basically enter the same information as last time, and then you would tick in the box, and this will cause a drop-down box to appear. So if you click in the box and then select the batch number that you want to add your registrations onto, and now you would select the external assessment windows that the learners you're adding will be sitting on, and then you will add in the new learners information exactly as you did before. So now Laura is going to take you through how to register learners via a CSV file.
Okay, so CSV files are here to give you a way of uploading the details of multiple learners in one go into this registration screen. So it's handy if you have a longer list of learners that you need to register onto a qualification at the same time. So it saves you a bit of time rather than using the key-in method for each individual learner. So I'm just going to talk you through how to download the CSV tool. So you can see here on the registration screen, there's an option to upload learners by CSV, and you access the CSV tool by going up to the Support tab and clicking on Download CSV Tool. So I'm going to open that. It's just being a bit slow. And if you just open that from the bottom. It's worth noting as well, while you're doing this, try not to have any more Excel spreadsheets open at the same time, because that can cause a problem. Okay, so it's important at this stage for you to click Enable Macros. Okay, so once you've done that, what will look like a blank Excel spreadsheet will appear. So what you need to do now to activate the CSV tool is to go along to the top where it says Add-ins, and then NCFE CSV tool, create a CSV registration, and key in method. And you can see that this brings up the NCFE CSV template here for you to input your information, and also brings up the key in data tool along the side, which we'll go to in a minute. So in terms of formatting your CSV file, most of these fields you can see here are pretty straightforward, but there are some common pitfalls with formatting that can create issues when uploading this to the registration screen. So we'll talk you through what to look out for now. So like with the key-in method on the registration screen, if you want the learner's middle name to appear on the certificate, you'll have to pop this into the forename field rather than the middle name field. So I'm just going to put my details in here. Also for the date of birth, it's formatted as 2 digits for the day, 2 digits for the month, and 4 for the year. Now, if you'd like to put the ethnicity in this field here, rather than typing out the word. And this actually requires you to use the ethnicity codes, which you can find in the key and data tool here by clicking on Show Ethnic Codes. So mine's just along the top here, so I'm just going to click Hide Ethnic Codes for now, and then key in my ethnic code. So for gender, rather than typing out male or female, the CSV tool actually requires just a single letter, so an M or an F. There we are. And I'm also just going to add another learner, just so that you can see how multiple learners get uploaded at the same time when I load this onto the registration screen. There we are. So, like with the key-in method on the registration screen, the center candidate ID and the ULN aren't mandatory fields. So when your CSV file is complete, I'll just show you how to save it. So if you go along to File, and then Save As. Okay, so at this stage, it's important that you don't save this as an Excel workbook, but you save this as CSV, comma delimited, and you can just name that whatever you want. And just click yes if that pops up. And there we are. So your CSV is now saved. So I'm just going to talk you through how to upload this onto the registration screen. So I'm just going to use the same qualification that Natalie was using before. I'm not going to add to an existing batch this time. Okay, so at this point, if you go to Upload Learners by CSV, and then click on Browse. And then I'll just quickly find the Excel spreadsheet that I've just made. There we are. So if you just double click on that, that'll populate into the field here. And then if you click Upload, and there you go. So you can see that the information is pulled from the CSV file into the fields here. Like with the key-in method, if you do need to edit, you can do by using this button here. And if you need to delete, you can just use the little rubbish bin in the red button here. So the next steps are exactly the same as how Natalie described them before. So if you just click Next, and there's the center information there, and then I'll click Finish. Okay, so the learners are now registered. There's been a new batch number assigned. And this page, I'll just talk you through the reports that this page populates. So the reports relating to the order, so the order report here and the order summary, these are just confirming the transaction and the cost of the registrations. And the other reports shown here are all here to help you keep track of your registrations and your entries for external assessment. And so you don't need to download all of them now. You can access these at a later date on the portal, and I'll show you whereabouts that is. So the learner status report, this is a list of all of the registrations you've made onto the batch and the learner details. The learner status unit progress report is a template that you can use to track your learners' progress throughout the qualification. So what unit grades they achieved and when you claim for the certificates and so on. And both of these reports can be accessed at a later date when entering the batch number into the search screen up here and then bringing up the reports relating to that batch. And here you can also download the entry confirmation report, which is here. So this lists all your learners and the date of the external assessment that they're entered for. And finally, you can also download the Invigilators Register for the external assessment. So this is the report that you'll need to complete and send back with the assessment papers once the learners have sat their exam. And both of these reports can be accessed under the entry screen and previous entries. Okay, so now that we've covered registering your learners using the two most common registration types, it's worth going over what happens when you complete these steps before your centre is actually approved to run this qualification. So I'm going to go back to the registration screen. Okay, and I'm going to try and register a learner onto a qualification that I know our test centre isn't approved to run. So I'm going to choose the new business and enterprise. There we are. Okay, so once you select the qualification in the search bar, you'll get this message here telling you that you can only bank your learners because your centre has not applied for approval for this product. So that will always pop up, but for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just going to continue. So 2 years for delivery, this current session. Put my details in here. And click next. And it'll just take you through the steps as before, so I'll just click finish. So this confirmation screen differs from the screen if you had approval to run the qualification. You'll still be given a batch number, but the status of your learners rather than registered will be banked. So you'll see this message explaining that you'll need to get in touch with us once you have approval. It's also worth noting that entries for external assessment can only be made once the registrations have gone through. So once you've been in touch with us and you have confirmation that your learners are registered, you can go onto the entry screen and enter them for external assessment as normal. But if you do need help with this, we're happy to walk you through this at any time. So that concludes the demonstration section of the webinar. We hope we went through everything, but if you do have any questions relating to this webinar, then we're happy to answer those questions for you now.